So this is a post-mortem specimen of a heart that has been cut open. You can see the cusps that show vegetations all along. This is the atrium, this is the ventricle, and vegetations along the cusps. The heart that has been opened along the atrium, you can see the mitral valve, and you can see that the valve is narrowed, and this is a fish mouth stenosis. Resembles a fish mouth. Now this is an aortic valve which shows vegetations. This is an atrioventricular valve which shows vegetations on the cusps, and on the surface of the vegetations thrombi have come, and these are the thickened cusps and they are fused and thickening of the papillary muscle. Now the mitral valve has been cut open and spread out. You can see the chordae tendineae are all fused. If you remember the previous pictures in the past couple of lectures, the chordae tendineae are very thin, and in this case they are fused. This is another picture of the mitral valve taken from the camera has been placed above the atrium which has been cut open to show a stenosis. This is a fish mouth stenosis. So microscopically, when you see the Aschoff bodies, it is nothing but a granulomatous inflammation. You will see lymphocytes, plasma cells, macrophages, and later on it will heal with scar formation. But the most important cell that you need to know are the Anish-Koch cells. This is a granuloma, and this is an Aschoff body, and all these are the myocardial cells. These plump macrophages are the Anish-Koch cells. All the other cells are lymphocytes, macrophages, and plasma cells. So going back to this granuloma will contain lymphocytes, plasma cells, macrophages, and Anish-Koch cells, and all are replaced by scar tissue later on, which is the tissue of healing. A higher power view of a granuloma and Aschoff body, and these are all the Anish-Koch cells. And all these are the macrophages, lymphocytes, and fibrosis all around. Both Aschoff body and Anish-Koch cells are commonly asked questions in the examinations. Another picture to help you understand an Aschoff body and Anish-Koch cells. Complications. When there is a mitral stenosis, again remember what I told you earlier, the surface of the mitral valve will show several thrombi because of hemodynamic burden. The thrombi will break up and go to different parts of the body. It can cause a stroke, it can cause systemic emboli. The pericardium gets attached between the parietal and visceral parts. So when you try to rip it off, it is stuck like bread and butter, like two layers of bread and a layer of butter. This is called bread and butter pericarditis. Increased movement of blood through the valve will cause the blood to push against the damaged valve, and that will cause damage to the RBCs, and this will cause cardiac hemolytic anemia. The left atrium is enlarged due to mitral regurgitation, and that can cause atrial fibrillation. And later on, the ventricle thickens, the ventricle dilates, and that can cause cardiac failure. It starts with left-sided heart failure and moves on to right-sided heart failure. Now, this is the heart and the pericardium. Now, the parietal and the visceral pericardium are separated. Can you see all these bits connected between them? This is nothing but bread and butter pericarditis. It resembles slices of bread between which you have butter, and when you separate it, the butter is a thick layer. So next time you have bread and butter for breakfast, you better remember bread and butter pericarditis. That's a good way to remember rheumatic heart disease complications in the pericardium. So the investigations, I've touched a little bit on this before. You have to do a group A streptococcal antigen, throat culture, and then check for the antibodies, ASO titer, anti-deoxyribonuclease B, and anti-DNA. All these antibodies will rise immediately, stay on for 3 to 6 months, and come down 6 to 12 months. So when you have a patient who has come within a year of the sore throat, you will know the level at which the antibody levels are proliferating. So it will help you to understand whether he is going to develop a rheumatic heart disease or not. But having said this, no one will come to you before a rheumatic heart disease. They would come to you only after you start manifesting with cardiac symptoms and acute phase reactions. As I told you, it is one of the Jones criteria. And clinically, you have to correlate, do a chest X-ray, look for ventricular hypertrophy, pulmonary congestion, and confirm with an echocardiogram for regurgitation or stenosis and an ECG for fibrillation or tachycardia. So this is a gross picture, post-mortem specimen of an aortic valve where the cusps are fused. When the cusps are fused, remember, this is rheumatic heart disease. Other forms of stenosis, the cusps don't fuse. This is a left atrium which has been opened up and the camera has taken the picture from above. You can see a stenotic mitral valve. Now this is a slice of the heart, panoramic view. You can see the left ventricle, the left atrium. This is a stenosed mitral valve, stenosed aortic valve. The blood could not go through the aortic valve due to aortic stenosis. So the left ventricle in course of time has undergone a hypertrophy. So much so that the muscle is so thick there is no chamber space at all. And then because of this, the blood has gone up into the left atrium and in course of time the left atrium has dilated. So this patient has died of heart failure because of left ventricular hypertrophy and failure and left atrial dilation due to aortic stenosis and mitral regurgitation. This is a beautiful picture which will help you understand almost the entire lecture.